Shambles of grief in daylight under heaven. I sit among the living in a park, 3 miles from where he's laid to rest. 3 months. Foot traffic dimly swirls around me. Throngs of the unbidden pass me, the unburied. I sit inside a coat he gave me once, systole and diastole. Not knowing when I halted at this bench, not knowing when I ceased to stalk the sidewalk, came to rest, not knowing, since it doesn't matter when. My heart walls moving of their own accord. A helpless deed, systole and diastole. Two halves carved from a pre-existing whole, contracting and the chambers fill with blood, dilating and the blood is surging through. 5 heaps of being, 5, the beggar said. O beggar, I have seen the mound of earth when all the rivers call their fountains back. I wore my shoes away. I wore away the stockings from my feet, seeking the house where no beloved person ever died. No father, mother, husband, wife, or child. Earth's crust diminishing beneath my feet. The mantle glimpsed, the churning iron core. My hand lies next to me, begging, unheld. Another earth, give me another earth. Then hide my hand, ashamed I couldn't help. My fingers touch a penny, long forgotten in my coat, forgotten in the shock. December 8th, midnight emergency. A penny swept together with belongings from his coat into a sack of personal effects, then locked away, then given to the spouse, neatly relinquished, nearly overlooked. Surely the last he touched, now briefly mine. A token of our parting, blindly kept. Alloy of zinc, the copper thinly clad, still ringing from the blow of the die that struck the faceless planchlet long ago, struck in the kingdom of the final cause. Blindly my fingers touch the edge. It thins, worn as if one side had disadhered, eroded, yet its force cannot be spent. How many hands have worn away the image? The frail, raised inscription of the motto, nearly intangible within the rim. One and the many, many and the one. How could I turn and say, but this is him? Nobody, looking at my face, can see that I am doubling back and doubling back. The room where breath is fought for, summoned here. I press damp lashes shut. Catch sight of him. Something one wants to say before one dies. What were the words I tried to cast a spell to understand? Stay, stay. His eyes seized mine. He summoned all his strength to move his gaze, to look out at the night a final time. Mysterious rudiments of our farewell, the night of January 23rd. Never again the moon in heaven above. Blue circular gorges hanging overhead, and heaven's hanging rivers gently wind along the rills of lunar magma flows, in shadow massifs, scattered bright debris, Steep cliffs and winding valleys, peak by peak and chains of peaks, extending out of sight. Bright looming ramparts guarding empty heavens, in lone peaks left behind in shadow bays that overflow in every melting phase, engulfing comet strikes and glancing blows and radiating rays. In rim by rim, a silver scythe materializes, mows the circular black floor of crater wells in silence and slow motion to expose an underlying wonder, brightest white that shades to chalk and gray and blue and beige, and watercolor lilac shadows shade to lavender and pale, tinted bays flooded with waterlight and lit with waves of lava flows, whose waters vaporize in ocean bays where no one ever sails, where ultimately powder gray prevails. Obliteration, fathomless repose. In meteoric ages orbit blows from relict lunar epochs still depict hallucinated maps of ancient time, a lit-up record of the time it slowed, revolving in slow motion on its axis, ever slower, ever more until it seemed to halt, but didn't halt, and seemed to hold itself forever still in such a night, held in the grip of Earth's magnetic holds, its synchronous rotation with the Earth, suspended, floodlit in eternity, the night of January 23rd. I held him like a passion-tattered cloak. At 4 a.m., the hour when one of us would turn in sleep to throw a leg across the other one, protective, unaware, I knelt and pressed my forehead to the sheet. The binding cloth, uncut, undyed, unsewn, in heaven above, but gathered in my hand, the end prepared before the sight of all. A nurse touching my shoulder. He passed away. I sought his face. The truthful countenance, inviolate strongholds, refuge and redoubt, facing extinction in a mental mirror. The still unbroken substratum of wonder, the mutual flame from hence, the blowing out. Forever rest. His head sunk to his chest, as if he bowed his head at last before the helpless deed that we were summoned to. Forever, ever rest. His hand in mine, possessive of my hand, all he possessed. And when I drew my hand away from his hand lay open, certain I was there. Let nothing evermore be dear to me. I stood instinctively to hear the call. The resident physician feeling for the artery. A witness from the staff whispered consolation. 4:15. The time and date and cause recorded. Signed. I swayed, dead on my feet, among the living, then stood away, unbidden. Still his wife, but couldn't draw one breath on his behalf, nor add a single heartbeat to his life. A gust of damp cement blows gently near me. I breathe the scent of rained-on concrete sidewalks, cold gravel, water-worn, black when it rains, then light gray when it dries. I breathe the scent the gravel has when evening rain arrives. Oh, beggar, I have seen the light gray soil. My begging hand lies near. I've seen the end, the body's tattered cloak, the blaze of eyes. something one wants to say before one dies, unspoken now. Give me another earth, if heaven could offer such another one. I stood, barefoot and powerless, and heard the distant drum in heaven begin to beat that takes up when a heart falls motionless. I stood instinctively to hear the call, beyond the muffled noise of our goodbyes. The bindings falling from the swaddled drum fall quietly. Before the sight of all, before the sight of each and every one, untouched, the immaterial knot unties.